The Galactic Academy's final exam had a reputation. 300 species. One impossible test. And today, I was about to watch 299 of them fail spectacularly. My name is Krell, and I've been proctoring this nightmare for 6 standard cycles. The exam was simple in theory. Identify the apex predator in a mixed species classroom scenario. Sounds easy, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. The observation deck hummed with nervous energy as candidates filed into their stations. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing the same scene from different angles. A human educational facility. 27 students. One hidden threat. Begin analysis, the head examiner announced, her 4 eyes gleaming with what I can only describe as sadistic glee. I watched the candidates lean forward, their various appendages dancing across control panels. They had 30 minutes to identify which student posed the greatest danger to the group. The correct answer would determine whether they graduated to diplomatic corps or ended up filing paperwork on some mining station in the Outer Rim. The scene was deliberately mundane. Human adolescents, roughly 15 solar cycles old, sitting in tiered rows. A male instructor droning about something called trigonometry. Classic misdirection. Most candidates immediately locked onto the obvious choices. Row 7, seat 4. A broad-shouldered male with scarred knuckles and a perpetual scowl. His disciplinary record scrolled across my screen. 12 fights. 3 suspensions. 1 incident involving a locker in someone's head. Too easy, I muttered, watching 80% of the candidates mark him as their primary threat. A Vexian to my left chittered excitedly, pointing at row 1. Another male. This one had the cold, calculating eyes of a predator. His psychological profile suggested antisocial tendencies. Perfect serial killer material, according to the Vexian's analysis. Wrong again, buddy. The really clever ones, maybe 15%, went for the teacher. Adult human. Position of authority. Access to the entire group. Statistical probability of threat escalation, moderate to high. Still wrong. I pulled up my own display, zooming in on row 3, seat 2. Mira Vance. Brown hair pulled into a practical ponytail. Unremarkable clothes. Average grades. She was currently doodling something in her notebook, occasionally glancing up when the teacher's voice rose in volume. Nothing about her screamed danger. That was the whole point. 10 minutes remaining. The head examiner announced. The pressure was getting to them now. A Krillian candidate started second-guessing himself, switching his answer from the fighter to the teacher, then back again. A Tholian's tentacles were literally tied in knots as she cycled through threat assessments that I could almost hear their thoughts. Humans were classified as a death world species, sure, but they were also gregarious, social, pack-bonded creatures. The threat had to be the outlier, the aggressive one, the antisocial one, the one who didn't fit the group dynamic. Except humans didn't work that way. See, here's what none of these candidates understood. What their fancy xenobiology courses and threat assessment seminars never quite captured. Human danger doesn't always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it sits quietly in row 3, doing homework. Mira's file was thin by design. Daughter of a maintenance worker and a librarian. No criminal record. No behavioral flags. She volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends, for crying out loud. But buried in her educational history, if you knew where to look, 3 instances of creative problem solving. That was human speak for, we're not quite sure how she did it, but we're moderately terrified. First instance, age 7. Reorganized her entire elementary school's lunch system to optimize efficiency. Sounds innocent? She'd somehow convinced 200 children to follow a complex rotation schedule without a single adult noticing until it had been running for 3 weeks. Second instance, age 12. Built a functioning electromagnetic pulse device from household items for a science fair. The teachers confiscated it immediately, not because it didn't work, because it worked too well. Third instance, age 14. Negotiated a truce between 2 rival social groups that had been feuding for 6 months. The details were classified, but the principal's notes included the phrases unprecedented leverage and mildly concerning tactical thinking. 5 minutes. The head examiner called out that I watched a Dralish candidate pull up Mira's file, his eyes widening as he read deeper. His hand hovered over the selection button. Come on, I thought. You're so close that he switched to the fighter instead. I sighed. The thing about apex predators is that they come in many forms. Sometimes they have claws and fangs. Sometimes they have cold eyes and violent tendencies. And sometimes, just sometimes, they have average grades, a ponytail, and the kind of mind that can see patterns where others see chaos. Mira Vance wasn't dangerous because she was violent. She was dangerous because she was 3 moves ahead of everyone else in that room, including the teacher. Her notebook wasn't full of doodles. It was a detailed analysis of every student's social connections, weaknesses, and potential pressure points. Why? Because she was bored. Because her brain didn't have an off switch. Because when you gave a human that smart nothing to do, they started solving problems. And when they ran out of problems, they started finding new ones. Time's up. Submit your answers. 298 candidates locked in their selections. The Dralish who'd almost figured it out sat staring at his screen, looking like he'd just lost his life savings on a bad bet. Only one candidate, a young Terran exchange student named Marcus Webb, had selected Mira Vance. The head examiner's expression shifted from sadistic glee to genuine surprise. "Well," she said slowly, pulling up the results. "This is unexpected." The observation deck fell silent as the results materialized on the main display. One correct answer out of 299 candidates. The failure rate was even worse than last cycle, and I'd thought that was impossible to beat. The head examiner's voice cut through the stunned silence. "Candidate Webb, please explain your reasoning." Marcus stood, looking uncomfortable as 298 pairs of eyes, stalks, and optical sensors turned toward him. He was young for a human, maybe 22 standard years, with the kind of nervous energy that suggested he'd consumed too much caffeine. The exam title was Identify the Threat, not Identify the Violent Individual. Marcus began, his voice steadier than I expected. Everyone focused on immediate physical danger. But humans don't work that way. Our most dangerous people aren't always the ones throwing punches. A Krillian candidate made a dismissive gesture with 3 of his appendages. "The male in row 7 has documented violent tendencies. Statistically proven threat. Statistically proven hothead," Marcus countered. "Big difference. That guy? He's predictable. You see him coming from a kilometer away. He's already been suspended 3 times, which means the system knows how to handle him. He's not a threat. He's a known quantity." The Vexian who'd selected the cold-eyed student spoke up, her translator rendering her chittering into standard. "And the one with antisocial markers? Psychological profiles indicate predatory behavior patterns." Marcus actually laughed. Not a polite chuckle. A genuine, slightly manic laugh that made several candidates lean away from him. "You ran a human psychological profile through a xenopsych matrix, didn't you?" "Yeah, that kid's got issues, but he's more likely to hurt himself than others. Humans with that particular constellation of traits? They withdraw. They isolate. They're dangerous to themselves, not the group." I found myself nodding. The kid understood his own species better than any textbook. "Mira Vance appears entirely unremarkable," the head examiner interjected, though her tone suggested she was testing him rather than disagreeing. "Average academics. Normal social integration. No behavioral flags." "Exactly," Marcus said, and there was something almost proud in his voice. "She's invisible. And that's terrifying. Look at her coordination scores. Top 5%. Look at her pattern recognition tests. 98th percentile. Now look at her actual grades. Perfectly average. She's deliberately flying under the radar." He pulled up Myra's file on the shared display, highlighting sections as he spoke. Age 7. She reorganized an entire school's social structure. Not because anyone asked her to. Because she could. Age 12. She built an EMP device. The write-up says household items, but if you check the parts list, she reverse-engineered military-grade specifications from publicly available information. That could be coincidence. A Tholian candidate offered weekly. Sure, Marcus agreed. And age 14? She ended a 6-month conflict between rival groups in 3 days. Want to know how? She found out what each side actually wanted, identified the real power players, and manufactured a situation where cooperation was the only logical choice. She manipulated 40 teenagers into doing exactly what she wanted, and they all thought it was their idea. The observation deck had gone very, very quiet. Marcus wasn't finished. That's not even the scary part. The scary part is what she's doing right now, in that classroom. Everyone else is watching the teacher. She's watching everyone else. See her eye movements? She's tracking social dynamics in real time. That notebook? Those aren't doodles. That's a social network map. I zoomed in on Mira's notebook. Marcus was absolutely right. Circles, lines, arrows. Names abbreviated in the margins. It was a complete power structure analysis of her classroom. Why would she do that? The Krillian demanded. What purpose does it serve? Because she's bored, Marcus said simply. And a bored human with an IQ in the stratosphere is like a loaded weapon with no safety. She's not violent. She doesn't need to be. Give her a week, and she could have that entire school doing whatever she wanted. Give her a month? She'd probably have the administration reorganized for optimal efficiency without them realizing they'd been managed. The head examiner leaned forward, all four eyes fixed on Marcus. You're suggesting her threat level exceeds immediate physical danger? I'm saying if you put her in a room with the other two, the fighter would try to punch her, the antisocial kid would ignore her, and within 10 minutes, she'd have the fighter convinced punching her was a bad idea, and the antisocial kid volunteering information he'd never shared with anyone. Marcus replied. Physical violence is easy to counter. Intelligence? Strategy? The ability to predict and manipulate human behavior? That's exponentially more dangerous in any long-term scenario. A long pause. Candidate web passes, the head examiner announced. The rest of you have clearly learned nothing from your xenopsychology courses. Humans are not simple. They are not predictable. And their most dangerous specimens do not advertise themselves. She turned to address the entire observation deck, her voice sharp enough to cut through hull plating. You looked for monsters. You should have been looking for minds. Dismissed. As the failed candidates filed out, looking shell-shocked, I caught Marcus's eye. He gave me a small, knowing nod. You're human, I said. You had an unfair advantage. Maybe, he admitted. But that's kind of the point, isn't it? Every species has blind spots. You need people who understand humans to work with humans. We're complicated, contradictory, and occasionally terrifying. He glanced back at the screen, where Mira Vance was still sitting in row 3, still watching everyone while appearing to do nothing at all. The galaxy keeps trying to figure us out using logic and statistics, Marcus continued. But humans aren't logical. We're strategic. We're adaptable. And our scariest people? They're the ones you never see coming. I thought about that as the displays powered down. 298 candidates had failed because they'd looked for the obvious threat. They'd expected teeth and claws and violence. They hadn't expected a 15-year-old girl with a ponytail and a notebook. That was their first mistake. IT probably wouldn't be their last. But hey, that's why we kept running this exam every cycle. Someone had to teach the galaxy that humans weren't just another death world species with sharp teeth and aggressive tendencies. We were something far more interesting. We were strategic. And that girl in row 3? She was just getting started. So what did you think? Did this story surprise you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this sci-fi story, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing science fiction stories every week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.